morning and welcome to Get to Know Your Leaders. My name is Jennifer Hurley and I'm your co-host this morning. Mishka, welcome.
Thank you.
Today we are very lucky to have with us Wayne Gunnis from Sunline Mass. Wayne, welcome.
Thank you.
Mishka, do you want to start with Wayne?
Let me start off with a fun question, Wayne.
Let's break the ice.
Yeah.
Very good.
If you could have anybody as a dinner guest, living or deceased, who would it be?
Well, that's an interesting question. Seeing that we live in Canada, Ontario, I wouldn't mind sitting down with Justin Trudeau, which I sort of did, but more in a greater setting than an intimate setting. So.
Why Justin Trudeau?
Because when even though he has the legacy behind him, he still took his own route through the campaigning into the election, and got as a young person coming through at becoming the prime minister of the country, and he's actually, my brief interaction with him was really nice. Matter of fact, when he attended the opening at City Hall once, we actually had numerous pictures with him, with our models.
Well, he was at the Juniors Carnival last year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he was only supposed to be there for about 10 minutes. It was just a brief thing. But he was there for about an hour and a half, which delayed our start. But he interacted with every single person. He stopped. I have a selfie with him too. But it's really interesting that you say that he has this huge legacy behind him, right? And then you're also trying to go into the future with the now and the present. And that's kind of also something that's happening in the carnival. There's been 55 years behind us that we all are dealing with. Mass bands, our steel pan groups, the Calypsonians, the FMC. We've all changed and evolved over the years. So that just makes me think of another question, which is, when you first decided to get into this and where you are now, what would you tell yourself when you first started that you know now?
So, interesting question, because I actually got into this as a teenager when I lived with my grandmother, and my original plan wasn't to be in the mass business, was actually be in the steel pan business.
Was this in Trinidad?
Yeah, correct. And what transpired is I actually had a long distance to travel to high school. So when you in Trinidad, they practice late. And getting home, my grandmother said, "Enough is enough. You're not coming in."
Where did you live in Trinidad?
Actually, San Fernando.
San Fernando.
Yeah.
She was like, "No Pan Man business."
Oh, no. I love Pan too.
Yeah.
Pan is probably my favorite piece of the carnival. I like the mass, obviously, it's beautiful. But in terms of the emotional response that you get to listening to steel band, I think it's really a unique experience. You actually feel it in your chest.
Absolutely.
You feel that emotion that rises.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the most interesting part of the carnival. Not to say that I don't love you guys, because I do, but the pan is something special, I think. So what made you change, other than your grandmother say that you're coming home too late, what made you change from the pan to the mass?
So I'm still a teenager. I decided, okay, so my only real luxury time that I had on my hands, besides playing sports, was basically on weekends. So I hooked up with a South band known as Calitran, and they're the largest and that's
Is that Calitran? Is that from East Indian descent?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
that's what I
can
thought.
you don't know this name, and I also can't understand what either of you just said.
Well,
So,
Calitran.
Calitran.
Calitran is an
a
Indian
family.
a surname.
Okay,
So
Calitran.
his last name is Calitran. It's an Indian name, which is why I recognized it right
Mhm.
away. And even back then, they had mass bands run by East Indian
Yep.
people. So tell me about that.
So it's just you started off, doing the grunt work, if you will, do this, do that, and eventually, it was more of a community. You had your communities and your community events, but then you also had the especially in the mass business, you had another community. So that's how I technically got involved with that, and did that for a few years until we migrated.
So the difference between Canada, Toronto, and Trinidad's Mass and Carnival, which some people don't realize, is that in Trinidad it's a countrywide celebration for months. As soon as Christmas was over, it's Carnival.
Correct.
So each village, each town has their own celebration, and of course everybody will go to Port of Spain when they get older, but I find that when you're younger, you stay in your village or your town with the mass.
And that could be for various reasons, like economics, time, transportation, back and forth, if it's available. So
How do you rate your experience in Trinidad with the one that you have here prior to you owning your own band?
prior, so when I migrated, I took a few years off, and okay, what am I doing here? I honestly don't fit in here. I wanted to go back to Trinidad. The only place we could hang out really was a nightclub called Cutty's.
Oh my goodness!
We all
Look at
went
we all-
there.
Even I'm jumping in. I never went there.
I think we all went there.
Oh my goodness.
It was really the only existence.
My dad is a drummer, so his career, being the age and coming to Canada, was at Cuddy. So I don't know, my mom and dad, that was like their spot. And I always think about it, and I'm like, one day I'm gonna open a Cuddy's, something like that
Yeah.
down here. But please,
Yeah.
I love that we all jumped.
I like that you said that you didn't feel that you fit in. Because for me, when I came to Canada, I felt very similarly. And the only thing that made me feel that I fit in was the carnival. And I worked in Bay Street downtown, very different from our culture. And when I would feel like if I was isolated, I would go to the carnival when we had it, and it would be like home. I would hear the music, I would hear people talking like me, I would eat the foods, I would see the mass. Is that something that made you get into it?
Well, really, I just avoided myself of trying to adjust to this North American life in Canada, really, because I'm still not a cold weather person.
Me too.
I thrive at this time of year in the summertime, but in reality, I was again had some time on my hand, and ironically, I was invited by a friend to the grand opening of a newspaper called Caribbean Camera. And so, and while attending Caribbean Camera's inaugural opening, I met an individual, also from South Island later on, from San Fernando actually. His name is Frankie Ramsey, and he was actually running a band in Toronto called Borokit. Now Borokit also had Borokit Atlanta, Borokit
I know Borokit.
New York, so yeah, so I hooked up with them for a few years, and I dragged my daughter around, who was one at the time, and bring her playpen, and we'd be filling that, passing the time.
Go ahead, man.
No, I love that you talked about your daughter in the playpen because,
You were the girl in the playpen.
yes, like my mother's gonna be like, I did not bring you there in a playpen. But from a very young age, I spent a lot of time. So I keep talking about this 10,000 hours makes you a master. And I've like desired this thing in my life, only to look back now, especially this year, and to be like, wow, I've spent way more than 10,000 hours inside of this carnival in my life. And from the time I was 7 years old, my mother used to tell people that she doesn't let many people help her. She used to make the kiddie section for the band we were in. She didn't let many people help her because she's like a perfectionist. It has to be done. But her two kids, 5 and 7, used to cut, she said, the smoothest circles because she'd be like, don't give me a circle with these juggy edges, you know?
Right.
But they're hearing that you had your daughter in it, and also hearing you bring up Boroki Caribbean camera, talk about not fitting in, because I think about even for kids that are born in Toronto, like me, and we're so a part of this, like your daughter who's in the mass camp. We go to school and sometimes you feel like, I can't talk about we wear these costumes and like no other kid did carnival. So how do you feel about the fact, like this legacy that you're living, Wayne, you're living it right now, what you've done for your family and for the Toronto Caribbean Carnival community. How has your entire journey in here impacted the way you feel about your purpose in life?
She's asking you some big questions.
Sorry,
Wayne.
because
I
Mass,
gotta dig
you
deep
talk.
for the
Sorry,
answers, right?
Mass started with you when you
Yes.
were a teenager.
Yeah.
No, it's a good question. It's just deep.
Yeah, it's well.
You were a teenager,
Yeah.
and now, and it's obviously part of your purpose. Like, but what do you feel about that? Sorry, it's crazy.
No, it's a great
It
question.
is crazy being here to think about the time
Yes.
someone has spent
Yes.
in this.
So where a culmination of a legacy, I guess, is to pass it on to our younger folks. Because, for instance, we have section leaders that played kiddies with us now,
Wow.
doing sections, and they do very well. So we as a group pride ourselves in quality and also timeliness of delivery. Because most of my life I've been around the service industry, and I hate to knock Trinidad, but service in Trinidad is not the greatest. And when you come here and you realize service is heavy reliance on service, we all are servicing someone, and to do your best to service whoever you're dealing with is what we pride ourselves on, and hopefully the people that are around us can continue on that journey and maintain that aspect of it overall.
Well, you talk about family. You run this band with family. Tell us about that.
So currently I'm the co-band leader and evolving, and now that Mishka has put me on the spot, and there's obvious visible age starting to show. So in order to have a continuance, if you will, because we never know what can happen any given day. My stepdaughter is basically announced last year at our band reveal that she'd be assisting as a co-band leader through this moving forward, because I'll tell you a good example of why that decision was made. Right now we live in an age of social media. Everything is online and out there
Yes.
fast, quick, TikTok, Instagram, and I'm not totally, I know what it is, I can handle myself, but I'm not on the cutting edge of the analytics,
I know exactly how you
algorithms,
feel.
and she has that capacity, and she keeps us on that level. She handles all that stuff, and I tell people the best example I can say of how this is, when we got in as a band, officially became a band in 2016, 17, even 2016 and 17, we were still printing brochures. No one prints brochures anymore.
No.
Everything is online now, and it's out there in your face. And again, that evolution into technology and the mass costume business, it has to keep evolving. And I'm be honest, I'm not totally well versed on it. So
Well, I totally know what you mean, because Mishka and I, in our leadership role, she's that person. I'm the brochure person. She's the technology person. So I think it's important to have that balance in leadership.
So I was gonna say too.
How
you,
do
you
you
need both?
Yes. How do you feel about your stepdaughter becoming involved in an industry where women are not normally the leaders of mass band? And what do you think of women leadership in this industry?
I look back to, honestly, to people like Jessie Matthews, who was one of the original women who had their own band. And I also remember there's a couple others that I know who tried and obviously did not succeed as well as they wanted to. But I think now with the young people and women that we have involved, I think they're well armed to take on what the requirements are and do a good job at it.
And I'm sure you're doing a lot of mentoring to her.
Well, yeah, plus she also does for me too in understanding, because, you know, like I mentioned, she talks about analytics and algorithms. Okay, just tell me how many people we have.
But you know what is so beautiful about what you're saying, and I'll say the same thing about Jennifer and I, is the openness and willingness to listen, to say, you'll do that, and I'll trust you to do that, giving the leeway to do it, but also what it does for this younger person who's a part of this succession plan. When you find the right one who wants to learn and wants to give their time and their energy to it, and you match it with the mentor who has the matching piece of that. I want to teach someone. I want to let them grow. I want to guide them. Then you have like this match made in heaven that, I don't know, the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, and it's not usual you find that. It sometimes when you have women in leadership roles, sometimes they clash. But when I think for us, it's the difference in age, because for me, I'm here to teach, and I'm here to try and serve, and Mishka is, for me, Mishka is the prodigy that I have to raise up, and I think that's why it works for us, for that synergy of energy. You talk about the age and the experience. That's what I have, and Mishka has the youth and the exuberance and the willingness to take lead. So I think that's what is important in a relationship where one's older, whether it's a male or female. But I think that mentorship is really important. But tell us about your band. Tell us what's unique about your band.
so we're one of the bands I came out of was, in my progression, was a band called Callaloo. Callaloo was considered a fun band.
Yes.
You know, you came, you hang out, it was a good release mechanism for a lot of working, because this is like a hobby. You do it after you finish work, and you know, so it evolved into that. I think we are similar in that sense. You can come hang out with us. And, I mean, you know, and we try to keep it friendly. You
So
know.
a family.
Well, we initially tried the family stuff, because when we did that when we were doing sections, and it was really nice. But when you become a band, it becomes a business,
It is.
and that changes the dynamic of
We were just talking about
Yeah.
this.
Yes.
it. You know, and some people don't understand that, you know, they're just the challenge of finding a location and the money that has to go out ahead of time, because, you know, reality is we start making deposits on our sound people or truck drivers in January. So, you know, that money has to come from somewhere, and some of our people who were treated like family, and so we always had food, drinks, and we looked after each other. And that sort of
Changed.
dwindled a bit,
Yes.
and they couldn't understand or handle that change.
You know, we had a very similar discussion today because with the FMC, we are financially responsible for putting on the carnival. And I think we had the media launch yesterday, and I think in my speech, I made it very clear that, you know, we are faced with extremely high expenses, and that means that we have to cut, or it means that we have to be very careful in how we spend, and we need to get funding from the government, and we need to get sponsors. But the discussion we were having this morning is that, you know, when we have to be so tight and so careful on how we spend our money, it impacts so many things that we would like to do, but we can't. And so it's just this balance, and it's a push and pull. And Mishka has all of these lovely, really lovely ideas. And I feel sometimes I'm like, but hold on, how are we funding this? So it's really interesting how when you put the financial piece into friendships and into really good working relationships, that you have difference of opinions in terms of how you do this and put on a good product.
Well, and I guess as the head of this organization, in a lesser sense, we have the same outlook, because as the band, we have to look. I look at it in the big picture.
Yes.
So if you take from this piece of the pie, and you have all your section leaders, so we want this, and this. How am I going to accomplish that, and how am I planning on to relate to you that unfortunately it's not going to happen, right?
It's a difficult proposition to take on, because it's difficult because you want to give people what they'd like to do. If we had unlimited amounts of money, you guys would be very, very happy with us, because we'd be funding you that unlimited. But unfortunately we don't. So we just really have to say, okay, if we fund you more, it means that we have to take a piece from somewhere else.
Right.
I'm not going into funding. I'm not going into anything political in this interview. But what I'm trying to say is that we all have to balance this financial reality that we all live in.
But there's a couple things I want to say. One is one of the benefits of having the stakeholders on the board is also the transparency that it allows for the financial situation. The carnival is put on a shoestring budget, and we saw this year Pride coming out very vocally about not having enough money to put on the festival that they would like to. And the truth is, we don't have enough money to put on the festival that we would like to too. We have tons of ideas. We have our stakeholders. You said the word hobby, and this is something that the reason we are calling it that is because of the financial situation that we're in to be a part of this business. It doesn't allow you to make this your life and your full-time business because you don't the funding. And I don't know, it's tough on every single person, and our stakeholders are the ones who are producing the art that everybody is enjoying. And myself and Jennifer continue to, bring that up in every conversation we have with our sponsors, with government, internally, to just let everybody know that, hey, we're doing this for each other, and we have to work together to get ourselves to a place where everybody feels that they're supported and can put their everything into it.
You know what I mean? When I took over, it was a very turbulent time when I took over. But I brought the team.
I heard about I was actually missing. I was in Ottawa lobbying the government for some changes on EI.
Yes, it was turbulent. But
you have a very busy other life too.
Yes, yes. We can talk about that in a little bit, but I just wanted to talk about the Love and Legacy project that I've encouraged the staff and our organization to build around. And because we all love this carnival in our own way, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this.
Absolutely.
So, and then we are also leaving a legacy to our kids. So for us, and for me specifically, when I heard the story that our steel band men, and you as well, steel band, for example, are playing under a bridge, it breaks my heart. It absolutely breaks my heart. And the Mass can't find a place to have their launches, to a camp to build their product. It is sad, and makes me angry at some point, because we put on a product that, as I said, it's $500 million that we bring to this economy in Toronto and Ontario. So it's really frustrating for me to not be able to help you, the Mass, the Pan, and the Calypsonians, to have a better place to be in. So our goal is to develop a home where we can have the Mass Band come in, where we can have a place for the Steel Band to practice, and where you guys can have your launch. It's our Love and Legacy project. But the reality is we have to have all of these financial constraints. But I when I make a plan, I generally try and make sure it follows through. So
I'm smiling because I'm like, you're tenacious.
Some people call it different words, but I really, it is my goal for the FMC, for us to be able to provide a home and a house and a museum to, even the concept that our Mass, our King and Queen, they're dismantled after the showcase. To me, that's a waste, because there's these beautiful creations that we should have in a museum.
We were talking about the fact that if we literally just had one large space, a warehouse, the Mass bands could do their band launches there. And these are just little things, but that would make a big difference, I think. The Mass bands could have the launches there. The Steel Band can store their instruments there, and there could be a schedule to practice. The Calypsonians can have a stage, they can practice. Maybe we have a studio, but just the fact that we've decided that we're going to do this brick by brick. I just wrote down Carnival City because when I started last year, I was in an interview, and the first question I got was, do you know what Carnival City is in Trinidad? And there's this whole place, and what are you guys doing to create that here? And all I can think is, this is the first step of it. It's going to be a good 5 years of trying to get our one building,
Yes.
but it's the beginning
It's
of our Carnival City.
It's probably going to take us 5 years to get the land.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we have to start, because there's no way our community at this point in time should not have this facility for us to be able to provide to you guys. Thoughts?
Well, it's funny you be, speaking along that line, and knowing the history and rumors of Caravana, as it was called, evolving into Toronto Caribbean Carnival. This points that for one, I can say, if you want some land, I know a guy who has land in Tobago.
Actually, we will talk about
Yes,
that
we
later.
do. But we want
So-
real land in Tobago, actually.
Yeah, but apparently, but that was the rumor.
Yes.
And that's how it was financed, was through But the fact that the festival is still ongoing is a testament to people who have actually invested their time and efforts into keeping it going.
Resiliency.
And I would say the evolution that you just spoke about and vision is would be great. It will definitely assist a lot of people, and make it more cohesive in a sense that you can have everyone readily available to discuss and explain why you're doing whatever decisions you make. So it's good. It's a grand vision, but
Well, if
nothing
you don't
is
have vision, you
unachievable,
don't have
right?
anything, right? I mean, at least you can have ideas and dreams. Because if you don't, then what do we do?
Yeah.
Then we don't improve, then we don't grow. So somebody has to take the risk of saying, okay, I am going to put my money or my thoughts or my ideas where my mouth is and not just talk. We need to actually do this. And I probably will take some licks, as to use that language from back home, for verbalizing it. Because if you don't do it within other people's time frame, then you get criticized. But I think it's important for us to do it. So if it means that I get some licks, that's okay. I have thick skin.
It's become realer and realer since the first day that you've said it, to the point now where I'm not concerned about it. I think we're speaking about it. We're talking about it. I see so many things that we're doing to build up the institution of the Toronto Caribbean Carnival. You know, people don't know how much not only the FMC organization, but the mass bands, Calypsonian, Steel Band, all our stakeholders contribute to this society. And I keep saying it's the reason why, one of the reasons why Toronto gets to say it's this rich, culturally diverse city. The fact that we just exist here, which is the coolest thing in the world. I can't remember my question.
That's okay, I have
Jennifer
one.
has one.
Tell me about your presentation this year.
So I'm not sure how other bands approach the season, the carnival season, but our approach has been we sit with all our section leaders and decide how we'd like to look, and even making a decision on the name of our presentation. So there's input, and I like that because in my real job, I have an executive board that I deal with, but I just make the decisions in between meetings. But we get together on a regular basis to go over whatever we need to do and address it. For instance, we have an event coming off in August in Halifax that needs all these plans to be put in place. So with that in mind, and my approach is that we started last September, and the section leader says, well, we need to keep up with the reality of what mass is today, and we actually had names or the decision really on what we should be called or what our presentation should be. So everyone's in this. So we're just coming out of pandemic. We this is our second year out of it. There's still the residual effects of the pandemic, and then they said we desire to be back where we were pre-pandemic. When our bills were 40% less.
Yes. Because
know.
it's not just the FMC that's facing the increases costs, it's you guys too.
And it is literally a 40% increase, which is blowing my mind. I don't know if I would have thought this would have ever happened 5 years ago.
Yeah, so my deposits I had mentioned earlier in January has also gone up because our sound people is charging more, our truck drivers are charging more. We can't get certain materials to create our costume. We're trying to source it from other places, and it's, like I said, at least 40% is the number that we're dealing with. And we wanted, that's part of the rationale why we came up, or we agreed on the name. There was a couple others and we decided we just go with the word desires, because people have dreams, they have their expectations. So you can desire whatever you want to be, and with the fact that we're transitioning out of the pandemic, and we used 2019 was a good year for the band itself, and we actually realized that if we want anything out of this, we should have that feeling or that
desire,
and that results, and everything culminating into that one word. Now, some of our section leaders have taken it a bit differently. So
I saw, and I loved it though, because what is impressive, well, this whole thing is about creativity. We say it's the carnival arts. I'm sorry to jump in, but I'm so excited about that you said some of the section leaders took it in a different direction. The beauty of what our people are able to do, where they take things, how they can stretch it into another direction. One of my favorite ones that I saw from your band was one of the people who I know probably took it further, or added more meaning to this word of desires. And I just think that's so beautiful. And it's just another way of why your band is one of those bands that truly represents your theme. It doesn't mean it has to all look or follow that, but we can show you many elements to the same theme. So I thought that was really cool.
You had your band launch at the Ontario Science Center. Why did you choose to do that?
So initially, that was not our first choice. We actually looking at another cultural center. And if you know, well, I guess a lot of people they know me, but they don't know me. My background is in social services and dealing with the public and any cause that they have that would make life better for them. So we looked around. We can use a banquet hall, but we were actually in talks with the Chinese Cultural Center back in January, and unfortunately, the person making the booking said, "Oh, yes, it's okay," and then came back afterwards and said no. So but because it's fun to in my own upbringing and the way I think and the way I operate is that using these locations would be better, and we were trying to find, okay, what's the best thing. The next thing we know is the Ontario Science Center popped up and said, okay, let's try this, and because I have a good relationship, like I do with your photographer Anthony, with the guy that presents the award for King and Queen for Vishnu. Yeah, and Vishnu is going to be there. We're using his place, and the Science Center is about community. It's about the family. It's about exploring and enhancing your mind and various dynamics. And this is a good
thing. You really are touching on the diversity aspect. I hear in the way that your band is thinking that that this carnival is not just for Caribbean people. Toronto Caribbean Carnival, the fact that we're in the most diverse city in the world, I've probably said this on another episode, but most diverse city in the world, most diverse Caribbean carnival in the world, and they're both happening in the same place. And we get people from all walks of life, all different races and cultures coming out to our festival. It's the most beautiful thing to see, the different, I'll just call them human bodies that are on our parade route in our costumes. And when you talk about where you were doing your band launch, I can see that you embody our theme also for this year, which is diversity and culture live here. It lives in the carnival. It lives in our mass bands. It lives in our community. And it's just so beautiful to know that the stakeholders are on the same track that we are on too, in trying to, and community. We also believe that this carnival truly was created by the community that still lives and breathes and put energy into it. It's out of this world.
How would you, if you were sitting in my chair, how would you encourage more diverse participation in the carnival?
Well, you know what? That's a bit of a challenge because of mindset.
Yes.
And especially people from the Caribbean, most people, they still have certain mindsets that even though they've lived here quite a few years, and they still keep that thought. I'm trying to be politically correct here because I
We
just don't
try,
want to
yeah,
blurt it out.
Yes.
But like we are working. I can say our band is working on with different groups in trying to bring that reality, if you will, in some percentage in life. And I think if we harness this, just me, my optics, if we harness the youth that we have, especially in high schools, and have them represent you in the schools, because if you drive around, Mass campus is lower Midland, and I'm driving by the high schools yesterday. I'm like, this is not what it looked like when I first migrated. If you can get that, you get a program, if you just simple program that that you can get the high school students to.
We actually
But it has to be diversified.
We have that program. I don't know if
We're
you
just
heard
getting
about it.
started about this.
We
high
just
school stuff.
started up an education program for the high schools and for the elementary schools.
Mhm.
And what we're doing is we hired a diversity consultant, and she has crafted lessons plan and to teach the kids how to build math.
Mhm.
And we also thinking about how to do courses on the business of math, so that people understand that your passion for culture can also be lucrative if you do it in the right way. But I think you're absolutely right. And we thought when we were thinking about how we expand this culture and grow the carnival and make it more diverse, we thought we have to start with the young people. And to do that, we have to go to the elementary schools and we have to go to the high schools. So I think we're in sync in terms of how we get that, a piece of it at least.
Can I give you an example of a thought I had many
Mhm.
years ago?
Absolutely. That's why we're doing this.
So there was the Band Leaders Association. And I approached, at that time, it was a band leader named Nip Davis. And I had funding to do kids. And I approached him as the head and I said, can I just come in and I'm not competing, I'm just bringing a bunch of kids to partake in your at that time, there was 2 existing carnivals. There was Eglinton West and the Brimley.
The kiddies
Going
yeah.
into
Mhm.
into the back of the Scarborough Town Center. And I said to him, I got a bunch of kids, I got some money, let me just come and I'm not competing. No, the rest of the band leaders wouldn't do that. And I always thought that before the FMC, it eludes me what the title was for the organization, that they should go to the Kennedy Road Business Association and speak to them about shutting down Kennedy Road and having your kids parade supported by the
That's an amazing idea.
yeah,
I
and,
really
and,
like
and then
that
they'll
idea.
probably say, well,
Write
Kennedy
that down,
Road.
Rishka.
Listen, I'm
Kennedy-
taking notes. I'm writing down
Kennedy
questions and
Road
also
is
notes.
really busy.
Yes.
But you can actually do it on Midland. The same way you shut down the Lakeshore, shut down a major thoroughfare, and Scarborough is the hub of this carnival.
Yes.
Let's be real.
That's where we live.
Right. And well, I live in the West. So
Yeah, I live in Belleville, so but I mean our community.
Yeah. Diversity lives here.
Yeah.
So it shows an excitement, if you will. Wait a minute, for kids, you're shutting down a major thoroughfare. It's going to piss a lot of people off, but I always thought of it as on Kennedy Road because it will also bring people into the business. Matter of fact, I got a call this morning, and I know it's a rumor, that someone is looking into bringing back kiddies back to Jane. I was like, well, I haven't heard that.
We haven't heard that
I
either.
think it's-
So,
but it is.
yeah.
It does assist the business and brings in people, but I'm thinking, why I'm not against Malvern, but we want to show off the kids, if you will, on a grander stage.
When I first started participating in the carnival, there was not a kids parade. My mom and some people had to make kids versions of the costumes, which is like ultra cute when you're like the only two kids amongst a sea of adults. But to see where we've gone from having no children's parade, and then I also used to go to the Brimley Road one, and then I think when it went to Jane at one point, I was too big. I was doing the big thing at that point. I was like, forget about that. But you bring up a good point, which is this carnival is growing and expanding, and part of our mission is to continue to do things and to have innovation that elevates it, you know? So it's not about, we don't want to be in any other places, but we just want to keep growing it and putting it up there.
So as a band leader, I know I'm going to take flack for this, but my vision is similar to if you want to extract anything to keep this growing, extract something from Trinidad that they have. Schools are allowed to take part. And that was part of I was going to go around to the different schools
Yes.
and bring the kids out. I couldn't get each school to do their
Well,
own.
you're expanding the TDSB
Yes.
program
Well,
to even another place.
Yes, because the program encourages a parade. But if you have them compete, that'll be a really, that's a concept that we maybe think about. I actually
I
kind of
love
like
it
that
too.
idea.
Me too.
So that, we're writing that one down too. Because I think it's
Mind you, I
important.
had this way back.
Okay, we will
way
put
back.
a little asterisk that says this is Wayne's idea.
No, but
Yeah.
again, if the festival fails, then what do we do? There's
Exactly.
I can spend my money on fishing, which I really don't like. I can go camping all summer, which I enjoy now. But you could put your money somewhere else. Your startup money and just be retired.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's because we all want to see this thing continue to go, up and up and up. Why we
Because I look at it because I have quite a few young people in our band. They all depend on myself and Ashland to make sure that they have expectations. We try to provide it, and they also giving up their whole summer.
Well, that brings me to my next question. What advice would you give to a young person who is trying to open or to try to start their own band?
Homework.
Somebody else done research, which is
Mhm,
it's very
mhm.
similar.
Because I'm not knocking anyone. I'm just saying I observed that even a couple of years ago, some newer bands came in and they did not figure out the dynamics and what it entails. And I had to go speak to someone at Kitty's last year. They had their DJs in an enclosed trailer with a generator running. That's unsafe.
It is.
Totally unsafe. And when I brought it to their attention, it was like, oh no, they'll rotate every so often. Like, no, you're sucking in
Carbon.
carbon
Yes.
dioxide. So like,
Yeah, there's not a manual for a band leader.
No, and maybe that's something you guys may want to think about.
Mhm.
If you have a planning, you have judging seminars. Maybe you should, if anyone wants, before you apply, come in and.
Do you want to lead that committee?
and
And I think it's a great idea, but
Yeah,
I think
love
it's
it.
important for us not to just do things on our own. I think it's important for us to get you guys involved because we don't run the bands, you do.
Yeah.
So
A lot
it would
of-
be
lot-
for something like that. It would require your participation.
Yeah, I absolutely don't have the answers.
Yes. So,
it's a lot. It's quite a bit of logistics. I learned, but because there's politics when we came in. Matter of fact, I am still proud to say, and I say it to everyone, in 2016 when we came in, there was 4 other bands. We are the only one surviving.
It's amazing.
So,
Congratulations.
and we thank you, and we are now right realizing that our brand or name is being on people's tongues, if you will, because
Mhm.
oh yeah, we know that. Before it's who are them, who are they?
Actually, you guys won the small and medium band section last year.
last year,
For 2022, you were the winner
Yeah.
of those categories, which is amazing.
which I'm still waiting for you guys to officially put out.
Well, we're gonna do it. You know
I got
what?
a text saying
I,
congratulations, but
We're going to make sure that happens.
what should I say?
That's a
You
lasting
know,
problem.
Here, how about this? Yeah, I was gonna go.
That was a lasting
I
problem.
recently told someone, I said, I became CEO March 1st, 2023.
so it wasn't in your capacity.
So
last year.
I wasn't
anything
here.
like that. Talk to me about it
So
now.
It's all good. I mean, yeah, we
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 have
have so
enough.
much history. For example, and this is totally self. I've competed in this carnival as a female individual
Yep.
4 times. I've won 3 times. I have not received a high five from the FMC. Give it. Now I can give it to myself. But that's one of the reasons why Jennifer also selected me or saw something in me that she was like, this is a valuable piece to this organization. I've been a part of this. I've had the disappointment from the other end. My sister was a 9-time queen of the carnival, and she was the face of the festival, and they'll tell you how their experience wasn't what they wanted or thought or hoped it would be. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do is change everybody's experience with this carnival.
So yeah, so we have relations, and we know each other before we even know each other. So my nieces used to go, oh, I'm gonna go help Mishka. Who?
Chantel and Karen Goring,
Yep.
2 people I grew up with,
Yep.
them and their family, their mother and their father.
And that's it. It's a very family-oriented business.
Listen,
It's a small environment. I mean, it's big, but really the players, it's a small number of players. So, which is good in some ways, but in other ways.
it's also hard because it brings us back to the same thing you talked about and what we talked about today is we're all so close to each other. We become connected to each other in personal heart. It's your passion, your love. And then there's this business side of it where we will disappoint each other. We will say things that the other person won't like or agree with. And balancing all of that in this world is probably the toughest thing.
I think for it to be successful, it has to be the people involved have to know that it's coming from a place of love and best interest of the organization and of the culture. Because I think if you guys think that we are just not listening or the decisions that we are making is not in the best interest or it's not because of the love that we have, I think we will have or continue to have the level of discourse that we were having before. But I think what my job is to do is to try and be transparent so that everybody knows what it is that we're trying to do, where we're at financially, and the things that we can and we can't do. And understand that we are working day and night. I mean, when I say day and night, I mean day and night to try and get funding, to try and get sponsors so that we can implement some of the ideas that we've been talking about, the ideas that we can pay you guys more money, the ideas that we can, when somebody wins a king and queen, that it's just you go off in the sunset and then that's it. We want to be able to have a museum. We want to be able to have a wall of winners somewhere where we have plaques and it gets unveiled and all of those things that we would love to do. But part of it is because we as an organization, and I don't want to criticize anybody because I'm sure people have lots of criticize about what we're doing now, but I think it's a safe thing to say that the long-term planning of the carnival has been at the back end of people's thoughts because every year it gets so busy about what are we going to do about this carnival, how are we going to put it on, where we're going to get money, that sometimes it takes somebody to say, hold on, let's take a step back and let us think about where do we want it to go, what do we need to get to go there, and how do we do that while still putting on a really good show. So that's what I think we're trying to lead on and what I'm trying to Mishka and I to do to really work to get this carnival going. But if you had to make one decision this year that is different from what we were making, what would that decision be?
For you guys,
Yes.
so actually I have to,
Go ahead.
and I need. Not I need. I think we need to really pay attention because honestly,
Right.
honestly, I think eventually your king and queen show is going to be in jeopardy, and that is because, and I witnessed this personally, we don't have in the city people who continue to build quality big mass. There's a few left and still functioning. Our guy right now is challenged with health issues, so we're trying to, whenever he's there, take what we can and put that together.
So is that an FMC decision or is that a reality that we're living in and that the
So
people
it's
who are building the
something to
mass?
pay attention to.
Okay,
as
so
we
maybe,
move
so
forward.
maybe we have a program to teach our kids how to build mass or teach
to
our.
build quality big
Yes.
costumes.
And shine more light on it. too.
Yes.
Yeah. Because the
Our community colleges, or maybe we have that as a design course or something.
Yeah.
Because we have to pass that down, because
Because
if they
it's-
die out,
yeah it's
I don't mean they the people, but if the art form
Yeah.
dies out, then how are we gonna be able to put on the good
quality
mass?
show. Yeah.
So what was
Uh,
your second one?
Something that was done a few years ago and it sort of did not materialize the last two carnivals was the recognition of past band leaders. Because we don't have too many left.
Mm.
And they had major input and contributions that was, bring the festival where it is today.
So maybe we should get them on this show and do something else.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the New Year's Day. I spend in front of my TV looking at the Rose Bowl parade, and beside the fact that we have almost the same team, they're in the same conference. They have a grand marshal. Why can't we have a grand marshal for a former band leader? New Dimensions was playing at your event a few days ago, and the actual person that started our band, and this doesn't necessarily have to just come from the mass. It comes from all stakeholders. He actually passed away. Unfortunately, was in an accident and died, and it was but he was a big founding input into the festival.
And there was no recognition.
And not that I know. I think they had to make a decision on who the person was. We recently lost one person who had his own band. He hung with us, but he evolved out of Mastorano. I know Errol of Mastorano is still around. Frankie from Borokita is still around. I'm not even sure who else is still around from the mass aspect.
I think that's another thing that we could get from the mass band is another committee where we can get things like that. Because I mean, we can just get some, but we will miss. Obviously, we don't want to miss. So we need to have a group of people who get together and maybe.
There's
This
a
is
sticky
the-
note in my office for a
Did
legacy.
you see her sticky notes?
No,
Ah,
there's
you're
people
gonna have
keep
to show
teasing
you.
me to say that there can't be a fan in there, but there's a sticky note saying legacy committee, to have band leaders on it, former band leaders, to assist in making sure that every year we acknowledge not only Mass, but also, like you said, Pan and Calypso, as well as also the FMC. We have so many volunteers and other people who contribute, but just to ensure that we're keeping track of that, we're acknowledging it, creating a program around the carnival's legacy to ensure that we're paying attention to that too.
Yeah, I just think that we need to not necessarily pay homage to them, but the recognition that, and if that message over social media is like, okay, we kind of look after our own, we recognize our own, and
Value.
Yes.
and the respect that they deserve, it's transferred onto the, it gives a more softer feel for the whole organization. Mind you, I just mentioned I'm community.
Yes, it's good. Your softness is coming out. So, how would you define success as a band leader?
Measures, I guess. In our aspect, as long as we don't lose money, it's a successful year because we, for instance, as I said, I came out of a band that was a fun band, and Anthony can attest, if you show up at the right time in our place, you're guaranteed food. So
Tell me when that is because
Yeah.
I'm always hungry.
I'm hungry right now.
Grand nights is Friday nights. So, last night was good. But we have volunteers that come in. We can't pay these people to do anything, but we make sure we provide subsistence for them. That whoever's decide to cook that day, that's where we at, and we sit, we have a meal together, we discuss things, and
It's beautiful.
camaraderie is there, trying to keep everyone together.
So, I have one final question for you. Where is your band located, and how can people register to become a masquerader in your band?
So our showroom is at 3595 St. Clair Avenue East. It's between Midland and Kennedy. It's a bit out of the beaten track towards the back in Building B. But if you see the Feed Ontario sign, you just follow it all the way to the far as you can go and hang a right.
Feed Ontario sign is
Yeah.
going the right way.
Yeah. Ironically, we end up there because
I love it.
they want us to do some stuff with them today
Cool.
also.
And how do you register?
So we are listed online at sunlinemass.com
Well,
on Instagram or
Mhm.
at
It-
sunlinemass.
it has been a pleasure speaking with you, Dwayne. We've learned a lot. We've had some really good ideas. I see Mishka has a page full of notes. So thank you. It's been really, really a wonderful pleasure for me getting to know you better and to getting to know about your band.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me and taking the time to set all this up and being here, because my biggest critique about the FMC has always been to equal treatment for everyone.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter how long you've been around as a band. If you're a band leader, your band should be given equal treatment.
Mhm.
Mishka heard it from us. She's heard it from Ashlyn Pepper, and even the former FMC. We tried our best to, level the playing field, if you will, because it is a competitive
Absolutely.
environment. So, if you're giving exposure to just 4 bands, why are you still taking in bands?
Well, we are not. As you can see, we are not giving
so far, so
exposure to
good.
just 4 bands. We are trying actually this year to focus on the small and medium bands.
Right.
And because we feel that these are the bands that actually need the exposure and need the assistance in terms of marketing and helping their bands to grow and giving them support. I mean, it's not all the time financial support that we can provide, but we can provide support in other ways to expose your band, expose your ideas, and I think this is how we
Yeah,
were
love
trying
it.
to do it.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. I mean, one critique when we met with at the debriefing last year with Mishka and Adrian is that whoever's doing the posting needs to know who they're posting, because we've had all our students posted under different bands, so it sort of takes away from.
Prior years.
Mhm. I've already nailed down the hammer on that one. Let me tell you. Thank you so much for being here. Like, we really appreciate it, and it means the world for us to get to know you and also to share you with other people too.
Well, I guess there's a lot of editing here, so I'm not sure. And I appreciate you having me, and thanks for the coffee.
Yeah. Thank you.